Hello everyone, and welcome to our instructional video for our Organization Builder application. This is Brian from ExcelForce Solutions. I appreciate you joining us. What I'd like to take you through today is kind of three broad categories regarding the system. The first is we'll go through the home page and some of the settings, and then we're going to talk about general system function. And then at the end I'll go through our foundation scoring process in a little more detail. Organization Builder was developed to really help companies handle the performance management part of their business. In general, what it's about is you can create a organization in here which results in an organization chart. And then for each employee on that organization chart, we can add job descriptions and performance reviews and training plans and things like that. So that's the general overview. I think from a strategic standpoint, when you tie in our foundation score system, I think it's a great way to really improve organizational health and make sure we're taking care of our employees. So that's the big picture. To kind of dive right in here, this home page, as you can see, a few things to talk about here. The first thing I wanted to point out is that this is an Excel-based application, and because of that, macros need to be enabled on your computer. You also have to have Excel on your computer in order to run this. Down here on the home page, we have instructions on how to enable macros on your computer if that's not the case today. You can also see a few other things on this page. This is where you'll always log in. This page will be the page that comes up every time you open the file. We'll talk about an access key in a second. There's some information and help that you can get to here. There's settings, which we'll go through, and then a couple of utilities down here. Should point out too, this video, if you ever want to watch it again, will always be a link from this home page right there. You can also from the home page visit our website or contact us through there as well. The first thing you're going to do when you open up your new Organization Builder is you need to enter a key, an access key. So before you even log in, you're going to click on this key button, and it's going to bring up a box, and if you have entered a key before, it will show what key you have there. What I'm going to put in there right now, which is probably what you'll have the first time you go through this as well, is our 7-day free trial key. It's K512. And when I click save, it actually saves that in the system, and that's going to control the access you have. So because that's a 7-day key, in 7 days that's going to deactivate itself. But once I've entered that key, then I can log in, and hopefully the instructions you received from our website as well. The first time you log into the system, you're going to use the password admin, ADMIN, and that's going to give you access to the whole system, and it's also going to allow you to change other passwords and things like that. So you click login, and up here it'll tell you that you are now logged in. So those are two kind of important processes that need to be done in that order when we're starting out. And just a few other things here. If you click on the info button, just a bunch of resources are brought up here. This you can see these control buttons here, which we'll go over in the next section. But there's a little key that explains each of those. There's some information on some icons you'll see throughout the system, a few notes on Excel in general. And if you ever get stuck on where to start with the system and things like that, if you just scroll through this info, it'll show you kind of the main steps in the process. This talks about our foundation score philosophy a little bit. Then it even gives you the 20 components of our foundation score, which again we'll go over in the third component of this training. So I'm going to go back to the home page, which you can always get to by clicking home here. It just takes us back to where we were. And I'm going to quickly go through settings here. There's four setting categories to talk about. The first is just general and security settings. And the two things you're going to do here is you're going to enter your organization name up here, because that'll show on all the reports and the forms, so that's very important. And you can see this is the one password we have logged in or loaded in here so far. You can add up to 4 additional, and you probably want to change this one, but you can have 5 admin passwords, and the first 2 give you access to all employees in the system and all settings, and then the second 3 give you access to all employees but not the settings. So if you wanted to give someone admin access and not give them the settings, that's how you would do that. Just anything you type in here, if I type Bob right here, then Bob would be an admin password that would give access. You can also over here assign specific managers access to just their people. So let's say we had an employee called by the name of Bill Smith. I would put his name there, and then if we wanted to give Bill a password, whatever, Bill S, then when he logged in with Bill S, he would only have access to any employees that report to him. So that's a way, if you want to kind of segregate the security by department, that's how you would do that. All right. Anytime I try to leave a page without saving, like if I clicked home here, the system's going to ask me if I want to save changes or discard changes. I'll discard them at this point. If I go back to settings and look at performance review settings, the performance review is one of the important forms that's in the system that we'll talk about in a little bit. And this form is very customizable, so this is where you do that. You can have up to 5 performance levels, and we got something loaded in here for you already, but you can change this. These are the labels that would show on the different 5. The performance review has comments that can be given to an employee, but it also has a score from 1 to 5, and this defines what those different 1 to 5s are. And then there's a description with each of those that shows on the performance review as well. So that's what that's about. You can also have up to 5 review types, and then within each review type there are 5 categories that you'll see on that 1-page review form. So you might have different things. For example, with a manager review, like we might have something like business objectives under a manager review that maybe we wouldn't have under a non-manager. So this is just totally flexible. You can set this up. Maybe a salesperson has different categories that we want to give them a performance review on, and this is totally up to you. And you can see what we have loaded in there so far. So that's that section. If I go back to the home page again, go back to settings, other form settings, a couple things in here. There's 3 levels of discipline reports in the system, and this is where you would define those. What I've got in there so far is something called an action plan, a coaching form, and a performance improvement plan. But you can call these anything you want. And then there's also an area here, and you don't have to have anything in here, but this language will actually print on the bottom of each of these forms. Obviously, when we're getting into discipline forms, especially level 3, which is going to be more serious, these become potentially legal documents. So there might be some legal language you want on the bottom of those, and that's where you would set those up. And you can see what we have loaded in here. You can use that, or you can blank that out, whatever you want to do. Within the system, there's something called feedback notes that we can attach to an employee as much as we want, and there's 5 possible types of feedback. And you can determine this and define this for yourself. Maybe you want to have internal and external, or these are customer comments and these are employee comments, or something like that. Feedback would just be, hey, Bob did a good job on that project. Might be an example of an internal comment. What I have in there right now, and you can change this, is just positive and negative, and that's one way to go as well. And then there's 7 non-position words. We're going to, in a little while, we'll go into an organization chart where we enter employee names and positions. And there may be occasions with the org chart where you instead of putting a person in a position, you want to just have a region or a department or a category. And I'll talk about that then a little bit too. But whenever these words are entered into a position, it is not counted as a person. And that kind of becomes important, because when there's a person in the system, then we can track, does the person have performance reviews or scorecards or that type of thing. Whereas if it's a department or something like that, kind of just a subcategory, then we don't want to do those forms, obviously. So that's what that's about. That may be something you never have to deal with, but I wanted to show it to you, obviously. Back to the home page and settings. The final one is our foundation score settings, and I'll go over those when I go over the third section a little bit later. So just a final note on tools. These are things you're probably not going to want to run too often. There's two utilities in the system. One actually clears all the forms out, like if you have performance reviews in there and things like that, it'll wipe them all out. And that's meant for the kind of turning over to a new year. I guess what we recommend is you use this system, you load the performance forms for a whole year, and then actually clear them out, kind of archive that file and start a new file. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later too. Then the second utility here is this resets the whole system. This clear the forms, all it does is take the forms out of the file. Resetting the entire system takes the employees out and everything. So that would be if you're taking a system that has data in it and you want to make a copy and use it for another department, for example, or another company, you would just clear it out and that would give you a blank system. So in each of those cases, obviously you have to be very careful, and just remember this is an Excel spreadsheet, so if you do something like that, reset the entire system, just make sure you save it under another name, and then you'll still have your old version as well. Alright, that ends the first part of our video, which just talks about settings and kind of getting logged in. The second set we'll talk about these buttons and the functions that are in the system. Be right back. Okay, now we're going to run through the basic function of the system, which will involve adding some employees and then adding forms to their file. So first of all, and really what we're going to do during this section is run through these buttons and explain what those all are and demonstrate those. Save obviously is saves. I'll show you when we're working on a form. There's two kinds of saves that go on. One is when you fill a form out and you click the save button, it actually saves it to the database. And then another thing the save will do is save the whole spreadsheet. So just a good thing to keep in mind. When you did save things successfully, this little icon shows up just to remind you that you've saved, and as you start to make more changes, that actually goes away as soon as the data is changed again. Home will always bring you back to this screen where you can get at some of these things we talked about in the first section. Log off should be the last thing you do when you're getting out of the system. All that does is officially logs you off and then saves the file as well. But we're going to start right now with the build function, which is what we use to add employees and positions into the system. And really, as we add people under this function, this is going to dynamically build our organization chart too, which I will also show you. So the first thing we're going to do, and it's going to ask you what organization view you want to see. And right now there's only one because we have no employees in this system right now. So I'm going to click on Management Organization and click Go, and it's going to bring me the top level of my organization. And simply what this is this green box is going to be the top manager in this organization chart that I'm putting together. Then the other 10 gray boxes are going to be direct reports to that person. So I'm just going to put some examples out here. We'll add Sally Jones as the president, and then I'm going to add people that report to her. We'll go with Bob Smith, VP of Sales and Marketing, Sherry Lane, VP of Manufacturing, Tim Wright, VP of Engineering, and Taylor Boone, VP of Finance. And it's important to put those in order just like I did. Just follow the numbers. If you kind of skip around, then the org chart's going to look a little funny. But once I fill in information like this, and this is true for any screen that you're on, the best thing to do when you're done, of course, is hit the Save button. And I'm going to show you the charting that's starting to take place already. If I click the Chart button here, it'll show me this organization chart that's been generated automatically for me. You can kind of see so far we've got 2 levels. And what I'm going to do next now is I'm going to build out, just in our example here, I'll build out Bob Smith's organization a little bit more. So what you'll see when you go back to the build function now and select the organization view again, all of these department managers show up. So I'm going to select Bob Smith, and I have kind of the same arrangement here. I'm going to enter names and positions in the gray boxes, and those are people that report directly to Bob. You can see there's quite a bit of them here. Got quite a bit of a capacity here in the org chart. And the only thing to note here is some of these gray boxes that report to Bob are assistant manager positions, and the white boxes below them report directly to them. So I'll demonstrate that, but that gives us the opportunity to have another level in the organization. But I'll just add a few employees here as well. We'll go with Rob Riddle, sales consultant, and we'll add Tom Fry as a sales consultant. And then I'm going to add Jody Steller, and she's going to be the marketing manager. So she's going to be one of those, whoops, I'm sorry. I want her to be one of those assistant managers, so I'm going to put her in an assistant manager box. She's the marketing manager, and then below her I will put Tony Ray, who's a marketing assistant. So again, if I save this and then go back to my chart, you can kind of see how this now is structured. And if you see how that works with the assistant managers, they show up in blue. So that's Jody Steller, reports directly to Bob Smith, but Tony Ray reports to her. So that's how that works. So as you continue to add employees, obviously this org chart will keep getting fuller and fuller. What I'm going to do next here is I'm going to skip over the F-score button right now. We'll come back to that kind of in our last section here. But what I'm going to do is add an employee file record for some of these employees. So if I click the drop down there, I see all the people I've added so far. So we'll target Bob Smith for now. So if I select that form, I get a blank, because I haven't added this yet, I get kind of a blank employee file. And I can do a few things here. This is where I'm going to log things about Bob. So I've got key dates I can put in here. I have a picture I can upload, and I'll show you that in a second. And then I have some personal notes and professional notes. And there's also an icon here called Forms. As I add forms to Bob's employee file, I can get at everything that relates to Bob Smith through that icon, which I'll demonstrate in a little bit too. So maybe just making up some information here. We'll add some dates. Bob's birthday is 7/13/60. Beth is his wife. Maybe I don't know her birthday. I should find that out. And our wedding anniversary, I don't know that right now. Personal notes, I might put something in here about Bob's family, for example. These are just things to help me remember my employees a little bit better. Bob has 3 kids, 2 in college and 1 at home, or whatever I want to do. Professional notes could be something about that I want to remember about Bob. Could be his work history. Bob used to be our VP of engineering, for example, or you can probably think of better examples than that, but just 2 areas to put some notes about Bob. And I guess we feel the more that you document about an employee, the better you're going to know them and the better they're going to feel about the job. Now a picture, what I can do here is just browse for a photo. So if I've got a larger staff and I want to put photos in here, I can definitely do that. I think I've got an example out here somewhere. So if I click on the photo when I find it, you can see it adds the photo, and really all it does is it stores the path to that photo so that I can bring it up anytime I want. So anyway, there we've added an employee file record for Bob Smith. So I'm going to just, as usual, save it. I'll come back to this red check a little bit when we talk about our foundation score section a little bit later. Now, another thing I can do with Bob Smith, of course, I have all these forms that I can fill out. I've got a job description. Now, what I probably am going to do, I'm going to back up here a second. Job descriptions relate only to the positions that are out there, of course, and then later we'll link them to employees as well. But right now I have no job descriptions loaded in my database either, so I'm gonna add that to Bob's position as well. I really don't need to do these at the same time like I'm doing. You can do them whenever you want, but job description should be added to set clear expectations for people, of course. So I'm going to add a new job description. It's going to bring up all of the positions that I have on my org chart right now that do not have a job description. You can see that's all of them here, but if I grab VP of Sales and Marketing, click Add, it's going to bring up a form here, which is what we use as our job description form in the system. And it's kind of a combination form. I guess what we always believed in is you can create an interactive position or job description by doing some checklist things on it. So that's how this is set up. If this doesn't work for you, just let us know. We can customize this a bit. But what this first section is about is position expectations. And this can be broader things, uphold the values of the company, for example, and things like that. And I can have up to 12 of those, but I can also get more detailed. And this maybe gets more important the farther down an organization you get, but there's daily check items, weekly check items, and monthly check items. And what this is meant to do is, as you fill out these checklists, print them out, give them to employees. And I've even had my businesses in the past, they'd fill them out, check them off every day, and then hand them in to me at the end of the week, for example. Is how that's meant to be used. And it just creates a real interactive kind of weekly conversation about the job description and job responsibilities. But we'll keep it simple today. You know, I would put as much as I need to there and fill that out, and I would do the same thing. I would save it, and now that's saved and related to that position of VP in Sales and Marketing. The next form on my list is the scorecards. And what a scorecard is, it really takes this job description and adds a scoring methodology to it. So I'll show you that. If I go to a scorecard, I'm going to add a new scorecard. Now the only people I have set up so far, I've got Bob Smith as an employee, and the system knows what position he's in because of the org chart. But what it's asking me for, and you'll see a lot of these forms will be asking for titles, and I would encourage you to use those as we kind of recommend, because that'll help you find these forms back in the future. So maybe for Bob, this is the 2014 Q1 scorecard. So I'm just giving that form a title. So I'm going to add that, and what it does is it brings up the job description that relates to Bob's position, and it just allows me then to score the different items. So uphold the value of the company. If Bob's doing a great job on that, maybe I give him a 4, you know, and stuff like that. So you can kind of go through this and give a scorecard based on that employee and his position. That's how those work. So if I'm done with this, I'll save my scorecard, so that again puts it in Bob Smith's file. The next form on our list is a performance review, and this is maybe a little more formal way to review an employee. And I'll select Bob Smith again. I'm going to give it a title again. Maybe this is my 2014 annual review. And I can select up to 5 types of reviews, and I went over this in settings. You can customize this yourself. Since Bob is in a management position, I'm going to select the manager review. So I'm going to click Add. It's going to bring that to my screen, and now I can write a performance review for Bob, which involves comments and examples in these boxes here, and then it also involves the scoring methodology again. So for example, leadership for Bob, You can see the 1 through 5 scoring range here, which again you set up in settings. But maybe Bob is an excellent leader. I'm going to give him a 5 and then make some comments. Great job. Keep up the good work, or whatever. Same thing with business objectives. You know, maybe we've hit the targets we had set for ourselves, or we were slightly below, whatever. Need to pick up the pace in Q1 or whatever. So that's how that works, obviously. When I complete that, I'm going to click Save there as well, and it's going to post that. It'll save that form information, and it will be in Bob Smith's file. The next form on our list is a discipline form, and same thing. If I add a discipline form, what it's going to ask me is who are the employees, Bob Smith, report type. And as I mentioned in the settings section as well, there's 3 kinds of discipline forms, kind of ranging in not so severe up to very severe, that you can define as well. So we'll make this just a call for an action plan that we want to do with Bob. This might be a sales plan for 2015 or something. So if I click Add, it brings that form into my work area here. And this is just a simple form. Gives you room to put comments regarding 3 areas of concerns, actions needed, any employee comments after the discussion was made that maybe you want to document in the system. And then one thing to notice about discipline forms in particular, there's a date closed on here and a date discussed. I think again, just because these are potentially legal documents, official forms in the file potentially, I think it's important to document when the employee when we had the discussion with the employee, and when we kind of closed out the discipline form. So in this case, if it's an action plan for sales, maybe there's some items that we're going to focus on for the next 90 days or something. So maybe the action plan will actually remain open for 90 days, but once it's closed, I will put a close date in there, because the system kind of tracks any open discipline reports. So once I've filled that out to my needs and whatever I'm trying to accomplish there, I will again save this, and it will post to his file. A couple other forms, last 2 forms. One is feedback, and feedback is just a simple a way to document quick notes for an employee. And this is just to help you throughout the course of a year or a quarter or whatever, keep track of things that maybe have come to your attention. So again, I'll select Bob Smith, and the feedback types, as we went over in settings, you can define these. Maybe I got some positive feedback. This is a customer comment that I got on Bob. Maybe I'll just document it here. And it's just a simple note that after you save it ends up in his file, and later on you can run a report kind of summarizing those as well. And the final form is a training plan, and again, just kind of a free form here that you can set up any way you want it. I'll call this one again a plan title 2014 development plan, for example. If I add that, I have in this case 3 different sections of this, which again you don't have to use. Each of these numbered areas becomes kind of a training goal that the system will track. And again, the dates here are important as well, because it will keep track of what training items do we have open, what do we have closed, and stuff like that. So you can use this however you would see fit. So maybe again, maybe my first category is sales training that we do every year or something. Maybe the first item is review training videos. Maybe I have a target date of 5/1/14 or something. So that's how we would do that. And once I've completed that, I can save that as well. So really, at this point, we've gone through every form that's possible for Bob. I'm going to go back to his employee file and show you how we can access these forms after the fact in two different ways. So if I go to the employee file, if I go back to Bob Smith, he comes back up, and now if I click on this forms icon and you click that down, you can kind of see all the different forms that we've added. So it's important, like I mentioned before, to use the titles, because that's how you bring them back up. So if I wanted to review look at his annual review again, I can pull that back up that quickly. So that's what that's meant for. Another way to go after existing forms is you can do it by form as well. So if I want to look at a certain, and this is good to point out too, whenever you try to leave a form after making some changes, it will ask you this question when it discard changes. But I can, with every one of these forms, it asks me if I want to add a new one or if I want to view and update existing. So if I click on view and update existing, that would show me my list of all the job descriptions, for example. So that's the other way to get at the different forms that are out there. If I kind of continue down, just finishing up our menu here, the clear button, all that does is just clears this area. So I don't know when you would use that exactly, but it's one way just to kind of reset the system as well. Reports gives you a list of different reports that you can run. Open discipline reports, employee key dates, feedback reports. That's the one I was mentioning. That just lists the feedback, employee summary, and position summary. And I'll run, just for example, if I run the employee summary, it gives me a list of every employee I have, and it tells me what forms they have on file. So you can see, because we were working on Bob Smith, he's got one of each, but nobody else has anything. So it's just a way to keep track of what's in the system. Print, the print button down there, just all that does is give a print preview of the current screen, and then you can print it as you typically would. And then there's a spell check button that when you click that, it just spell checks the current sheet as well. So that is the list of control buttons on the right hand side there. Our next section, we will dive in briefly to the foundation score system and how that integrates into the system. Okay, to wrap up our training video for the organization builder, I'm going to take us through the foundation score process that we have built into the system. I'm going to start, I think I showed you this in the settings section as well, but if I go into settings, there's a foundation score settings selection. And this is the area that allows us to set goals, but just on an overall basis, what the foundation score is, if all of this information with all our employees, our organization charts, our forms, once you have those all in a database, there's a lot of information that can be gathered about the organization. And what we did is we just kind of dreamed about that a little bit and came up with 20 items that are measurables in the system. And it's not like, we're not saying this is a perfect measure of employee health or anything, but I think it creates a good kind of directional number where we can see if we're getting better in this area or going backwards. And what it measures in general is how engaged are we with our employees. And I think from a strategy standpoint, there probably is nothing more important than that. So we thought this was a good way to kind of put a balanced scorecard together related to our people and how we're engaging them as managers. So I'm going to run through quickly just what the 20 items are here, and then I'll show you how this works. And again, some of these are more dire than others, but adding it all together, what we do is we assign to each of these 20 a 10-point, from 0 to 10 points. So depending on how well we're stacking up to the goals that we set here in the settings area, points are assigned. So for example, employee file completeness. This just gets into simply when we create an employee file for an employee, how much information do we have? Do we know their key dates? Do we have comments in there regarding their personal lives and professional lives and stuff like that. Because it's possible to add an employee to the system and not have any of that information. We believe, and this is kind of the concept of the foundation score, we believe the more information you have in the system about the employee, the more you're going to know and the better boss you're going to be. That's the concept. So what this does is it just measures the percent of available fields completed in the employee file. So very simple. And here we set a goal. These are just the initial goals. You can change these, but the goal is 85%. We'd like to see 85% of the fields in the employee record be filled out. Next one is job descriptions written. And we believe every job description on the org chart should have every position on the org chart should have a job description written for it. So the goal is 100%. Job description completeness. That just gets into, again, how complete are these things? How full are these job descriptions? How much time have we spent thinking about this? And we put 60% goal there. Team performance score. What this does is it just takes the scorecards and the performance reviews and kind of adds them all together and averages them out. And the idea is, if we have a very strong team, we're probably going to have a good score. If we have a weak team, then we're going to give out more 1s and 2s on the 1 to 5 scoring. So I've set a goal here to start the system at 3.5, and you can do whatever you want there. The offset to that one, performance scoring range, and maybe you've seen this. I've definitely dealt with performance reviews in the past from managers, people that have worked for me, whatever, and they give employees all 5s, and you see that a lot of 5s, a lot of 4s, just not a lot of thought put into it a lot of times. So this actually offsets the team scoring, and you can see down here we kind of set up a targeted distribution of scoring. And what this kind of means is, we expect 5% of the scores out there to be 1s, 15% to be 2s, 45% to be 3s, 20%, and 15%, for example. And what this score measures is any overweighting that's going on in the 4s and 5s. Now, you will have employees that deserve all 5s, I'm not saying that, but 50% of the employees probably don't deserve all 5s. So what we're trying to measure there is, are we scoring fairly? So that's what that performance scoring range metric is about. Performance forms per person per year. This just gets into how many performance reviews and scorecards have we written per person per year, and it just annualizes this. It's just a measure of quantity in the system, very simply. So kind of, again, directionally tells you if we're not writing any of these things, we're probably not giving our employees enough feedback, etc. So here the goal in the system to start out is set at 4 per person per year. And that could be, 3 quarterly scorecards and a performance review. If you want to do less than that, or if you do less than that, maybe it's 2, and you can change this goal to be measured against. Performance forms comments lengths. What that does is it measures how many comments are we, or how big a comments are we making on these forms. Because again, in my career, I've seen too many performance reviews with no comments, and I think to have a valuable discussion with an employee, we need to have some meat in the review. So that just measures comment length, and a goal set there is 150 per comment section. Again, you can adjust that. Training goals per person per year. How many development goals do we have in the system? How many of those are being closed on time? And how many at this point in time are complete? And we put down 80% here, that at any given snapshot in time, 80% should be complete, 20% should be open. Again, you can adjust that. Feedback notes per person per year, same thing, just a volume measure. Max span of control. This one talks about, looks at the org chart and just says, what's the manager with the widest span of control, or who has the most people meeting or working for him. And what we said here in the goal, when we put a goal of 8, that just says is as long as we're at 8 or below, we're good. So if we have somebody that has 12 direct reports, for example, then if our goal is set at 8, that will count points against us for the foundation score. Annualized turnover rate, how many people have we lost in a given year? And the way the system measures this, these would be people in the employee file that are no longer on the organization chart. So it's important to keep the organization chart current. That's kind of the current employee list, if you will. Hired this year and lost this year. How many employees did we hire in the current year, and how many of those are no longer with us? It's just kind of a measure of hiring success. Average employee tenure. How long have people been with us? Employees with tenure over 3 years. Managers with tenure over 3 years. Just kind of gets in again to evaluating the experience of our staff, and once again, to measure that, obviously the employee file has to be complete, or we have to have those dates loaded in there. How many discipline forms per person per year are we targeting? And this one's an interesting one. I think obviously we don't want a lot of discipline forms, but on the other hand, if we're not writing any, we're not addressing performance concerns. So that's why all these measures were put in here, and you can set the goal where you want it. The way this is set up, it says we should at least get 1 per person per year. Not that everybody's going to get 1, but you're going to have people that get 2. And remember, the discipline forms are not all severe issues. You have action plans in there as well, which are really not discipline forms at all. They're just trying to assist somebody with their performance. Discipline forms open now. This is how many are currently open. And if you take the Jack Welch approach, 10% of our people are usually there's something to be addressed. So that's why this goal is set at 10%. It's like if we don't have any open at this current time, same concept, we're probably not dealing with every performance issue that we should be. And then days to resolve discipline. How long are these discipline forms open between the discussion date and the close date? Just that measures, are we staying on top of these things and working through them. So that is the complicated scoring methodology, which you really don't need to think about too much, but I wanted to go over it just so you understand kind of the strategy behind it. And the way this works out in the system, I'm going to go back to the home page here. There's a couple of ways you're going to see this throughout the system. This F-score button, if I go there, and you have to be logged in, somehow I logged myself out. If I go to the F-score button, this is the dashboard to letting you know how well I'm doing on the foundation score at any given time. So you can see you've got kind of a speedometer here. Max score would be 10, minimum score would be 0. And just with the test data I put in so far, I'm at a 4.5. And then this chart here will give you a trend by month. And then it lists the 20 items we just went through kind of in descending order, you know, how many points. Now it was easy for me. I added 1 form of each type, and because I just initialized this system today, you know, that's a pretty good pace over the course of a year, because you're probably not going to do that. You're not going to add 8 forms a day, you know. But I got 10 points on those because of that. You can see there's a bunch of them I have 0 points on as well. And I'll go into, for example, performance form comment length. When I added that performance review, I didn't put any comments in hardly, and I'll show you how you can check that at the time as well. But I got 0 points on that. And the other thing this report does is it shows you things to work on. You know, these are going to be lists of people in these categories that I can work on to improve my foundation score. So who is missing employee file information? Who is missing training plans? Who is overdue in their training plans, etc. So that, if I want to know how can I improve my foundation score today, that's how I would do that. And the last thing I want to show you, when you're in a particular form, and let's go back to our Bob Smith file here. And I'll go into his performance review that we had put in. Actually, let me pull up employee form here. Okay, I'm going to try that again. Open Bob Smith. Okay, what you're going to see when you pull this form up is, and again, if you recall what I entered in here, not too much. This red check mark, when you click that, it's going to give you a quick summary of how this particular form stacks up for the foundation score. So if I click on this, it's going to tell me actual percent of fields complete is 71% versus target of 85%. So this is my employee file, not my performance review. So I put quite a bit in, I entered some data in here, so my percent complete isn't too bad. And that's really the only thing we measure on this employee file. If I pull up, like I had done, maybe, I think we did a scorecard for Bob as well. If I bring that up, and you can see I hardly entered anything here. So if I click on the red check, it's going to tell me my average comment length is 0, because I didn't put any comments in over here, versus a goal of 150 characters. My score is 4, based on an average score of 3.5. My percent of 4s and 5s is 75%, versus an average target of 35%. Not sure how it's getting 75%. But anyway, you get the gist. This will tell you how good this form is. So if you want to really use the foundation score and really tie into this strategy, if you train your folks to kind of check their forms, it'll remind them, hey, you probably should put some more comments here, or hey, is this person really involved, really deserve all 5s? It's just a way to double check exactly what we're doing. So that's the foundation score overview. I hope that made sense, and I appreciate your time, and thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.